Georgia and Tennessee. And we talked about this a lot yesterday, limping into this tournament today.
You know, peaking at the right time is everything. And I know kind of going into a postseason push like this, you know, losing their last 6 games can be kind of tough, but sometimes it can help teams rally, you know, at last minute when you're least expecting it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. When you look at what the next couple days, couple weeks are going to be like for South Carolina baseball, everything is still technically in front of them. So they can win a couple games at the SEC tournament. They don't have to go in and win the whole thing to be to lock themselves into the NCAA tournament. I feel pretty confident. What we learned yesterday from D1's baseball projections, they're going to be in no matter what happens today, even though there was a little bit of worry there. If you could maybe pop a win today, maybe find another one tomorrow or something like that, give yourself some kind of momentum, and then go on some kind of great run in the NCAA tournament, then we're talking about a completely different team, you know, through the month of June. But I just haven't seen enough from this team over these past couple weeks to instill a lot of confidence in me. And I would even say, just kind of gauging the reaction of the fan base, really throughout this entire season, there's not a whole lot of belief in this team right now that they're suddenly going to be able to flip a switch and turn it on in the month of June.
Yeah, and, you know, when you're coming off a series against, you know, the number 1 ranked team in the country, it's kind of hard to, I guess, have faith in a sense.
And I know you're new down here, but Hoover has not treated South Carolina well over the years. They're one of only a handful of teams that's never won the SEC tournament. They don't usually go too deep into the tournament, and today's the single elimination round. So if they get bounced today by Alabama, that is it for them for the week, and they'll have to wait for their selection of the NCAA tournament. So, again, it's not that they have to go in there and win the whole thing, but a couple of wins would be nice just to give them some kind of foundation to go into the NCAA tournament with, because again, they've been scuffling these past couple weeks. The pitching's been bad. The hitting was pretty much non-existent this past weekend. So you want some kind of hope more than anything else.
Yeah, and I think I was actually reading earlier this week, you know, I think part of that's going to stem from, you know, figuring out some of those issues going on the plate. You know, I was reading they rank second highest total in the SEC for striking out 221 times at the plate. That's behind Missouri. And they also have a losing record against, you know, Clemson amongst, you know, all those teams that are going off against NCAA play, or SEC play, excuse me. But right. I think that's going to be kind of a good, if they could at least kind of like solidify that series. I know Tennessee, they kind of struggled, and then the series before that, they were kind of struggling as well. But I don't know. It just seems like they're going to need to figure stuff out, I guess, going into this postseason.
Yeah, and when you look at where they sit right now in the RPI, still number 19. They didn't actually move after losing that series against Tennessee, but the number that really sticks out to me, 9-18 against quad 1 opponents. So they've played a lot of really good teams, as you typically do when you play in the SEC, but you're only winning a third of those games. That's the problem, and that's why I was worried heading into the SEC tournament before, again, we got some of the latest projections that losing to Alabama today might not be enough to get them into the NCAA tournament. I feel a little bit better about that because they're projected as a 3 seed in Clemson's regional based on what D1 said yesterday. So I think no matter what happens today, they are still in. But, I mean, I think I was right to be concerned because, again, when you're scuffling the way that they had the past couple weeks, it's not unrealistic to think that the powers that be, those in charge of deciding who's going to be in the tournament, would look at them and say, well, that team's not worth anything right now.
Right. And I think, you know, if they can at least kind of put up some sort of a fight, you know, against this Alabama team, then, you know, maybe they can kind of pose more of a stronger argument.
So let's hear a little bit from Coach Kingston yesterday as he talked to the media, briefly getting set for this series, or excuse me, the NCAA tournament. SEC tournament. Where's my head at? Today, starting against Alabama later on this afternoon. Let's go with cut number 5 here, Dave. Here is Coach Kingston talking about the challenge of Hoover that's been for the South Carolina team.
Well, I've only been here for maybe 1% of the South Carolina history, so I can't speak for.
But from like when you've been there.
Yeah, look, I think you go there and it's single elimination a lot of times, and so look, anything can happen in a single elimination game. I think most teams go there wanting to win, but also keeping an eye on the next weekend, which is very important to be fresh and ready to go and lined up for the regional, super regional in Omaha. So I think it's just a combination of all those things.
And again, I don't know. South Carolina baseball has not historically been good at the SEC tournament, even predating Mark Kingston's time here. I question, is Mark Kingston a good tournament coach in general? Because not a good track record at the SEC tournament. I mean, yeah, they were able to get out of the regional last year, have only been to a handful of postseasons in general. Like, I don't know if I can definitively say Mark Kingston is a great tournament coach at this point in time, at least for his time at South Carolina. And I don't know how well that serves them, not only for this week, but for the NCAA tournament coming up the end of next week as well.
Yeah, again, I think the biggest thing goes back to the amount of experience you have kind of playing at that level. And, the fact that he's only, in year 7 of this being the Mark Kingston era, he's only kind of, reached that, regional, super regional kind of area, not as many times as you'd like to see. And so I think, kind of going forward, it would kind of help, even if the SEC tournament doesn't go as necessarily planned, kind of having that experience to kind of bring this team at least playing in a postseason environment can at least help when you don't have, experience coaching at that level.
Well, the biggest question surrounding this team is obviously around what's happened with pitching, which, again, has scuffled these past couple weeks. Let's get cut number 2 here, Dave. Here's Coach Kingston talking about getting creative with the pitching at the tournament this week.
A little bit, yeah. I think that the biggest indication of why that has been really good for us this year, if you look at our midweek games, including in North Carolina, we gave up 1 run doing that. So I think it's something we need to look at, again, as we get into the postseason where it's going to be win or go home. We have to be creative. We don't have 3 lockdown weekend starters, so we've got to be creative. And having guys go through the lineup one time is a good way to do it because guys have been successful that way.
And again, the problem with this team has been pitching for a while now, even going back to that Missouri series where they didn't end up pitching all that great. And Garrett Gainey, who's definitively been the best pitcher on this team, particularly in the starting role as of late, just threw the other day on Friday, I guess it was, threw a lot of pitches there. So maybe not quite, ready to slide into that starting role. So they're going to go with Dylan Eskew today. And it really sounds like from what Coach Kingston says there, you have the opportunity to maybe do like what you did on Saturday against Tennessee, where you have kind of an opener and Eskew going 2, maybe 3 innings. And then you just kind of open up the possibilities for anybody that can come in after that, maybe eat an inning or 2 and kind of go from there. But again, for this team that really has their back up against the wall, to a degree, I don't think there's any bad options. And, I roll with whoever you can at this point in time, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it can't hurt to especially be a little bit creative right now. I know everybody's a little bit more anxious because it's the postseason and everybody's itching to, get on the mound, throw some heaters out there. But I think that, going back to, said in the soundbite, just being creative, giving guys opportunities, it also kind of makes it hard for teams to kind of predict, what is coming at them every other throw. So I think it creates a little bit more versatility and gives other people more opportunities as well.
So again, Eskew getting the start today with 2 2/3 against Alabama earlier on the season back in March. Gave up 3 hits, 5 runs, 2 walks, and 1 strikeout in that 13-6 loss that South Carolina had on the road in Tuscaloosa. Now, this is an Alabama team, very good, very efficient on offense. You got to look out for guys like Russell Gage and Will Hameter, who is their right fielder, who has come on strong as of late. And again, this kind of falls in line with what we've seen with Georgia and Tennessee in these past couple of weeks, where you take on a high-powered offense. You have pitching staff that is struggling right now, and I'm really worried that South Carolina is going to be able to keep Alabama under 7-8 runs in this game.
It'll be interesting to see how they can kind of stack up, especially defensively. I think if they can get themselves going offensively, it'll be interesting to see how they can kind of get through this matchup.
Let's get one more cut here from Coach Kingston. Cut number 7 here, Dave. Here is Coach Kingston talking about the confidence that he has in South Carolina making the NCAA tournament, despite no matter what happens out in Hoover this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no precedent for a team having 13 wins, having a better than 30 RPI and not getting in the NCAA tournament. They're going to pick the best 64 teams. We have a 19 RPI. The teams that we have played that also have 13 wins in our league, we were 6-3 against this year. The resume is very strong. It's just we happen to play the best schedule in the country. Played 18 games against the top 7 teams in the RPI. It's a ridiculously hard schedule. We endured it, we survived it, and we still came out the other side with a 19 RPI. So that's a slam dunk NCAA team.
And he's right. You know, again, looking at the latest projections from yesterday, they're projected to be in Clemson's regional. Clemson, the number 6 national seed. South Carolina would go in as the number 3 seed alongside Louisiana and Army as well. And again, I think this team is safely in the tournament no matter what happens out in Hoover. But you know, based on these latest projections and everything. But it's still worth pointing out that 2 weeks ago, the last time you were in here, we were looking at this team being a projected national seed and hosting an NCAA regional, and now you're looking at going in as a number 3 seed. That is quite a fall from grace. And again, I don't think they're in danger of falling out of the tournament at this point in time, but that is a very, very glaring difference between where you were 2 weeks ago and where you are now.
I still think it's going to be exciting baseball regardless.
Oh no, the tournament is always exciting baseball, and look, you get in the tournament, you have an opportunity to win, and anybody can get hot at any time. But I want some kind of optimism coming away from Hoover to give me hope that this team's going to be able to do something.
Well, it's hard when you kind of closed out the regular season 6 wins or 6 games in a row, you lose all 6. But I mean, hey, anything could happen today, and today really could be that turning point, with the start of the SEC tournament. It's not, tournament play isn't really make or break, and for some teams it's not even really a big deal. But,
right,
sometimes it can be, peaking at that right time, and, the start of that tournament play could really be, the light bulb in, anybody's head.
We will have plenty more about baseball as the day goes along. Again, that game with Alabama coming up later this afternoon. First pitch sometime around 2 o'clock. It really depends on when game number 1 between Georgia and LSU wraps up. But pregame coverage will be starting here regardless at 1:15 on the game just after the halftime show with myself and Terry Ford. So keep it locked right here all morning and all day long for all of your baseball coverage. We'll switch gears, jump over to some college football coming up next. ESPN has their top 25 coming away from spring. Couple teams on this list that A, I feel like maybe shouldn't be on the list, and B, are way, way too high. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. He is Sam Shapiro. I'm Tyler Head along with you on your Tuesday morning on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Sam Shapiro, along with you on this Tuesday morning. All this talk about baseball reminds me the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway rolls along for another game. $1,350 up for grabs today. If a Gamecock hitter can blast a Grand Slam out in Hoover against the Alabama Crimson Tide, I have been informed that if there is no Gamecock Grand Slam this season, we will just have a drawing for somebody to win all that money when the season is over. So even if a Grand Slam does not happen, you can actually still win that money. So make sure you go online to 1075thegame.com and register for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Sam, we are in the month of May, and that is probably the quietest portion of the year when it comes to college football, which is weird because the college football calendar is completely chaotic. But this is the period of time where players actually get a little reprieve. A lot of those guys have gone home, get a couple weeks off for returning after Memorial Day, which will be next week, to start their summer workouts. Coaches on the recruiting trail, obviously, but getting to take a little bit more of a reprieve as well. So this is the time of year when we get a lot of lists and rankings and things like that to help fill the gap until we have, like SEC media days or SEC spring meetings and that kind of stuff. So we always get some interesting takes this time of year, it seems like.
These are the too early to predict prediction lists?
Pretty much, which I feel like, especially in today's world of college football with transfer portal and so much turnover happening on a year-to-year basis, everything is too early. Everything is hard to predict until you actually start playing football in the fall.
It surprises me how people keep the gears churning all year round, and you're always thinking about where you're plugging and playing. But, at the Division I level, it's a business.
So Mark Schlabach of ESPN put out his college football post-spring top 25 rankings, and I'll go ahead and spoil it for people. South Carolina is not on this list. I don't think anybody expected them to be on this list. But the top, the teams at the very top, no surprise here. You got Georgia at number 1, Ohio State at number 2, Texas at number 3, Oregon at number 4. Like, these are teams that I think we legitimately look at this offseason and say, okay, those are probably 4 of the, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 teams that we think has a realistic shot at the national championship this season. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would argue that, yeah.
Obviously, Georgia has won 2 out of the past 3. Ohio State, a team that just messed out in the playoff a season ago. Texas in the playoff. Texas finally back. We can stop making those jokes now. And then Oregon, a team that was on the cusp of making the playoff once again. So they'll be in the mix there. Where I have a problem is when we get down to number 5. Because, and I don't know what your experience has been like with this, not having spent your entire life in the Southeast. There's always a growing perception that Notre Dame gets a little bit too much love, especially in the offseason, that they're always going to be projected to be better than they actually are. So Notre Dame sitting at number 5 in the post-spring top 25 is a little much for me.
Well, and when you're taking guys like Joe Alt and Blake Fisher off the line, I mean, you can't lose line power like that and just I feel like have them ranked so high. I mean, those were 2 crucial pieces of that offense that, made them not just play at a high level last year, but, when you remove a piece like that from a focal point of an offense like a, lineman, then sometimes it could really make or break how that system really runs.
And that's very important. And Joe Alt obviously went very high in the NFL draft, and it's very important to have good offensive line play. I'm not completely sold on Marcus Freeman just yet as a head coach. I think he's a solid head coach, but I don't know if I'm ready to put him into this upper echelon of all of college football saying that he's going to bring Notre Dame, championship glory anytime soon. Like, Brian Kelly is a really good head coach. Brian Kelly took Notre Dame to a national championship, took them to another additional college football playoff, and yes, did that when they got on the big stage, they underperformed. They lost those games usually pretty handily, but still he got them there, and I think that's worth something. Through 2 seasons, give him credit. Marcus Freeman's won 8 games and 9 games respectively in the regular season, won both their bowl games, including the win against South Carolina in the Gator Bowl a couple seasons ago. I haven't seen enough from him as a head coach to think that he's ready to break into that top mold of college football yet, though.
Yeah, going back, you said Florida. Mm-hmm. They also have, I believe 8 ranked teams that they're playing this upcoming year. So it's not, their schedule strength isn't necessarily working in their favor either there.
No, absolutely. And fortunately, they didn't put Florida in this top 25, which I think a lot of people would have lost their minds if they did because there's no reason to put them in there. But Notre Dame at number 5, that's just way too high for me. Now, you are getting Riley Leonard coming over from Duke, replacing Sam Hartman, who was the one-year transfer coming over from Wake Forest. One thing they can't hang their hat on, though, is defense. This defense is going to be really good. Got a lot of guys that are going to be going in the first and second rounds of the NFL draft coming back on it. You know, I think 9 or 10 wins are certainly possible, but I don't know, especially being an independent, because that's so finicky. I don't know if that's good enough to get a team like this in the college football playoff, or I think put them this high on the list at this point in time. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think a lot of, putting them at number 5 definitely stems from having confidence in that defense. It definitely seems like they have a pretty concrete, squad kind of going into this fall, but like you said, a defense unfortunately can't carry you, the entire way. Not compare, pro compared to college, is apples, oranges, whatever. But when you look at that Seahawks team and when you look at that Denver team, those were 2 NFL teams that had really, really strong defenses, but their offenses were substantial enough to kind of carry them over the hump.
Let's go a little bit further down the list here. Clemson coming in at number 16. Obviously, this past year was a significant step back in Clemson, considering the fact they did not win double-digit games for the first time in a very long time. And we talk about this a lot. Dabo Swinney does not like the transfer portal. I can't put a lot of confidence in a team that is not willing to go out there and make the necessary moves in the offseason to bring in talent from around the country when literally every other team in college football, with the exception of like the service academies, is doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think in terms of being in the outlier there, it's not going to necessarily work to your benefit. I mean, you utilizing the transfer portal, you can kind of see what certain skill sets work in different systems, and and I believe any player can really offer any type of skill set that could help you reach that end goal of getting the W. So I think it just kind of limits their options.
And quite frankly, I don't know how big of a jump Cade Klubnik's going to be able to make in what this will be your second full year as a starter. He ended up taking over for DJU at the end of 2020. And look, his numbers were fine a season ago. Threw for 2,800 yards, 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's okay. That's certainly not in the upper echelon of college football quarterbacks. But I don't know how seismic of a jump he can make in year number 3.
It's just interesting to see how much the quarterback position has really changed, the game of football and how much of a priority it's really become over any part of the offense in the way that it has.
Last one here. I want to hit this real quick before you get out of this segment. Southern Cal at number 25. Southern Cal, look, Lincoln Riley is a phenomenal offensive mind. One of the best offensive minds in all of college football. I don't doubt that their offense is going to be good. Now, yes, they are going from Caleb Williams to Miller Moss, and I know he had a great bowl game against Louisville, but that's a bowl game against Louisville. Let's see how you do playing in the Big Ten. The defense is the big question mark for me. They've been god-awful on defense ever since Lincoln Riley got there. Lincoln Riley teams are always historically god-awful on defense. However, this offseason, Lincoln Riley's team's committed to making that better. Fired Alex Grinch, went out and got D'Anton Lynn, the defensive coordinator from right down the road at UCLA. And my thing with them is it can't really get worse, but just because it's better doesn't mean it's going to be, I think, enough to compete in the Big Ten, which they are going into for their first season this year.
I don't know. I think it's Miller Moss's it's his opportunity to blow at this point.
It seems that way. And look, again, offense is always going to be good when you have Lincoln Riley as head coach, and he's that quarterback whisperer type of guy. So I don't think Miller Moss is going to be Caleb Williams by any means. I think he can be certainly serviceable. My problem is if you're going to give up 50 points a game, you got to be able to score 50 points a game. And unfortunately, that's what they weren't able to do a season ago.
If the defense can figure it out, maybe it'll really be Miller Moss's field day.
We'll see what happens. Speaking of quarterbacks, we'll jump over to South Carolina coming up next as we hit our TEC Equipment Rentals, who's done the heavy lifting, because I think a South Carolina quarterback has done quite a bit of heavy lifting so far this spring. We'll hit that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. He is Sam Shapiro. I am Tyler Head, along with you on your Tuesday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Sam Shapiro along with you here on this Tuesday morning. It is time for Who Did the Heavy Lifting, brought to you by our friends over at TEC Equipment Rentals on Old Dunbar Road in West Columbia. And I want to get a little bit creative with this one because it's not as obvious as you might think. I feel like I can assign this award to Lenore Sellers. And I say that from the standpoint of the fact that, you know, he was the guy at quarterback through his first spring as a starter, quote unquote, starter at least coming out of spring. And I feel like he's done a lot of heavy lifting up to this point from the standpoint of the fact that he's shouldering the load of being a starting quarterback in the SEC. And again, he's still got to actually start a game when the fall rolls around, but having to deal with that going through spring, knowing that, and again, I think we've all known that he was going to be the guy ever since Spencer Rattler, you know, went to the NFL draft. And I think he's done a really good job with that. I think he's done a good job of heavy lifting through the spring so far. Now, again, you got to go out there on the field and perform this fall, but I think up to this point, I can say that he's done a really good job with that.
It seems like he's been given the keys to the Porsche, and he's been taking care of it pretty well, and he's been, I guess, you know, driving it the way he should be. You know, I think at this point it's going to be interesting to see how he meshes with that offensive line. But I think regardless of how he kind of plays it either way, I think he kind of has the skill set to go forward and kind of help that develop his game into his career. I think he's getting the opportunity of a lifetime. You know, being named kind of that quarterback one, especially at this, you know, point in his career. He hasn't really even gotten started yet. And
that's a lot to shoulder, again, while it goes into you know, doing the heavy lifting here, because he's only, 18, 19 years old, if that old, you know, redshirt freshman, got the experience to be on the field a little bit this past season in some garbage time type situations. So to go from that transition of that to now being the guy, which, again, we all kind of assumed was going to be the case, that is a lot to handle. And we've had the opportunity to have Lenore Sellers in here. We've gotten to know him a little bit. He's got a good head on his shoulder. Seems like a really smart kid, and I think he's going to be able to handle that pressure just fine when the season rolls around.
I hope that he kind of really comes into his own a little early on, because then he'll, you know, I feel like get more of an opportunity to really develop his game over, you know, 2, 3, 4, 4 years of playing, and I think that could really, you know, pay dividends in the long run. I feel like a lot of, you know, programs you see, you have a J.J. McCarthy where they quickly want to, you know, just get out quickly and don't necessarily want to, you know, develop or, you know, have as much time necessarily to really develop, you know, their skill set. And I think, you know, coming in at 18 years old, like you said, that, you know, not every quarterback can kind of just get into it, you know, get really immersed, get involved in a system like that and really, you know, kind of be able to do almost what they want.
On this same note, Josh Pate of the Late Kick podcast with CBS Sports was talking yesterday, kind of bouncing around the SEC, talking about confidence in quarterback rooms. Let's go with cut number 9 here, Dave. Here's Josh Pate rating the South Carolina quarterback room where it currently stands right now.
Now let's go somewhere where there's a lot of hope. There's no result. There's just a lot of hope. South Carolina. Their quarterback room, I'm putting it at a 6.5 on the 1 to 10 scale because there's no experience. Like, there's no real proven production here, but there is so much potential. Lenore Sellers, we've been waiting on him, and it's finally his time. We were talking about him last year as if a year from now he was going to be the guy. Well, it's a year later, and he is the guy. Ton of ability, no experience. The only one way to get it, obviously. The backup situation is basically Lenore's just stay healthy. Robbie Ashford came there from Auburn. He's the backup quarterback. I don't know that, you know, aside from him, their quarterback of the future is there, but Lenore Sellers is the here and now. He's the guy. Give me a 6.5 on South Carolina. Could easily check back in after the first month of the season and say, oh, no, that should have been like a 7.5 or an 8. Just depends on how he plays.
And I feel like that's a fair place to put it at this point in time, because, again, we don't know. I mean, we've not seen Lenore Sellers as a true starter, and we won't for another 100 or some odd days, you know, when the Old Dominion game rolls around. And even then, I don't think that's enough to tell us the true story of what Sellers is going to be as starter until we start getting in the SEC play in the weeks after that. But it's a lot better place than we could be. I will say that.
And I think that's as optimistic as you can be, like you were saying right now. I mean, you don't really have a resume or a track record, at least at this level, to kind of go off of. But, I mean, you look at the skill set and you look at what, Sellers has to offer kind of in terms of skill set as a player right now. And, I mean, you got to be fired up, especially when you kind of see where the group of guys he's really working with and, how they're kind of planning to, quote unquote, I guess, go to battle every day or every weekend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this goes back to why I signed him as the winner of the who did the heavy lifting, for this week, because if we were sitting here right now and there was still legitimate competition going on for quarterback, I think we'd be worried. Now, yes, Beamer said that there was going to be a competition when Robbie Ashford came in, and nobody has a starting role until we name somebody a starter, but we knew that Sellers had the inside track. If we were sitting here coming away from spring still not sure who was going to be the starting quarterback, that confidence level for a guy like Josh Pate, or the rating would probably be somewhere around like a 3 or a 4. And I think we'd all be panicking. It's like, man, we thought Sellers was going to be the guy, didn't end up happening, and now we're worried about what this season is going to look like. So the fact that our belief has been reaffirmed by Beamer naming him the starting quarterback coming out of fall, I think gives everybody a lot of confidence. Now, it's still a daunting schedule, and you still got to go out there and actually perform. But where we sit right now, I think 102 days away from kickoff, we're not as worried as we could be. I'll say that much.
Given the loss of Radler and kind of with the expectation that Sellers was going to kind of have to step up into this role, kind of have to step up to the plate, when it kind of we were expected, I guess, kind of to be in this place a year prior.
Yeah.
And now that we're here and it's all kind of being reaffirmed and it's like, the plan kind of hasn't changed, that definitely instills a lot of, not just reassurance, but a lot of confidence going forward.
And what I like about what they've done in the transfer portal, not just addressing the needs that they had, they brought in a lot of experience around Lenore Sellers, as well as having some guys that returned from last year's team that helps too. But I look at the fact that you're going to have Rocket Sanders, a guy that's been around the SEC for several years, one of the best running backs coming over from Arkansas. You got a lot of experience at wide receiver, guys coming in from various places, and again, we got to kind of figure out how that's all going to shake out at the wide receiver spot. You have Josh Simon coming back for another year, Brady Hunt coming in from Ball State. You just have a lot of good experience pieces around Lenore Sellers that is going to hopefully help him come along in this process of being a starting quarterback in the SEC.
Like I was kind of saying before, it's kind of his, I really think it's kind of his battle to lose, having experience, with guys that he was on the team with, when he was kind of in that red shirt season, but then also, plugging in some new pieces to kind of that system and trying to figure out how that works, kind of going back to the fact that, he's 18, 19 years old. He's got more time to kind of plug and play, see what works, what doesn't work. And again, kind of give more guys also opportunities that, maybe not have had a chance, with Rattler or prior systems.
And knock on wood, let's hope that he stays healthy. As Josh Pate mentioned in that clip a second ago, that's the plan, is just don't get hurt. Now you bring in a guy in Robbie Ashford with a very similar skill set that if worse came to worse, you could throw him out there and he could hopefully keep things afloat. But we saw when he started at Auburn, he's not the guy to be that featured quarterback in the SEC like we think Lenore Sellers can be. Got Dante Reno coming as a true freshman. He's somebody that down the road is expected to be your starter, but you don't want to have to turn the keys over to him as a true freshman unless you absolutely had to. So you've got, as well as bringing in Davis Bevel from the transfer portal as well. So you've got a lot of I want to say a lot of cushion there. You have guys behind them that in a pinch could do the job. But again, knock on wood, let's hope Lenore Sellers stays healthy and can lead this team to the heights that we are hoping that he can.
I know this is a bit optimistic, but I want to see at least 8 wins.
That's a tall ask. I would say I'm setting my bare minimum expectation of getting back to a bowl game. I know that's not a lot, but it's better than you did a season ago. So if you can get back to a bowl game, anything past that for me is gravy, because you're at least taking a step back in the right direction.
I want to hear some he's a freshman chants this fall.
And you very well might. And look, we played some clips the other week of Cody Belair from On3, talking about Lenore Sellers being a dark horse Heisman candidate. And I'm not ready to put him in that conversation yet. I certainly hope that ends up being the case. But
yeah, I didn't say that.
If he lives up to what the hype around him is, and yes, there's a lot more hype around him because he is certainly a local guy, and we've kind of heard his story for the past couple of years. But if he can live up to that hype, he can be a solid quarterback in the SEC. And solid in the SEC, that goes a long way. So we'll see what Lenore Sellers is able to do when the season rolls around. But I think he's done a good job with the heavy lifting of bearing that burden of being the guy through his first spring as the assumed starter here at South Carolina. We'll come back and we'll talk a little bit of my favorite topic, the EA Sports College Football video game, because a lot has transpired since the last time Sam was in here with me. It is The Extra Point. He is Sam Shapiro. I'm Tyler Head, along with you on your Tuesday on The Game. Welcome back in. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on The Game. Sam Shapiro along with me as he does each and every Tuesday. And Sam, a couple weeks ago when you were in here, we hadn't gotten the cover reveal, and we'd not seen the trailer yet for the new EA Sports college football video game. Both those things have happened in the past couple weeks. What have been your thoughts on what we've seen so far?
It's a great thing for sports, and it's great for, people that want to get more involved in the college game. I know we were kind of talking about this initially when I started coming on every Tuesday, but, kind of since moving here, I've kind of been really introduced to especially SEC sports.
Yeah.
And really just Division I college football. And I think this game is kind of a great way for I would have really benefited, having this game 15, 16 years ago, as a little kid growing up.
Now, were you weren't into the original game back in the day? Did you ever play it?
Not typically, no. I was more of a professional. Well, I liked Madden more, but, I kind of grew up playing NBA 2K a lot as well.
I gotcha. I see. So the last game that they made was NCAA 14, which came out in the summer of 2013, which was going into my senior year of high school. It's insane to think about. I've been playing that game for 11 years now because that is the last instance of college football video gaming that we've had up until what we're going to get here, coming up in a couple months in July. The fun thing, and it's interesting that you haven't gotten to experience this game, Dynasty Mode, which is essentially the franchise mode of college football video games, where you get to take a program and you're the head coach, you're in charge of recruiting, you're in charge of making schedules, you're obviously in charge of playing the games as well, but you get to build your literal dynasty from the ground up if you want to. And you can obviously go in there, you can play as Georgia, you can play as Ohio State, Alabama, these really established programs in, college football already, where you're going to have top-end talent, guys rated in the 90s and 80s and stuff like that, and go win pretty easily. It's a challenge and a badge of honor, I say, to take a team that's at the bottom of the barrel in college football and try and build them into a powerhouse through this game. And that's what makes these games so fun, because you can do this over the course of years and years and years in Dynasty Mode and bring somebody up from literally nothing to being a national champion. That's what's exciting to me.
It's interesting. This is kind of the first opportunity we're really getting to. It's taken this long to kind of incorporate this into a college football game, let alone, it's been, however many years since there's been a game like this. But you're going to have a lot of people glued to their screens for basically all summer.
Listen, this game comes out on July the 19th. That is a Friday. I've already told Terry, I've already told my wife that I'm not going to be doing anything productive that weekend because I'm going to be inside playing this game.
I couldn't blame you. I mean, surface level, I'm grabbing it. I'm, taking some of those commercial players, Sanders to Travis Hunter. It's going to be a lot of spectacular catches.
So if you're picking a school right now to build your dynasty with, who are you going with?
I kind of would want to pick Colorado just because I feel like Dion would kind of like that.
Okay.
But you gotta look out for the dark horse schools. And I was kind of looking on Reddit, and I saw this post. This guy was saying New Mexico State would kind of be an interesting pick. 57 seasons without a bowl appearance. I don't know. I would kind of want to help bring them to their first, bowl appearance.
Yeah, that's a solid one. They've been at the bottom of college football for quite a while now. I'm a little partial to Kennesaw State. I'm from Georgia. Kennesaw State, not too far from where I grew up, and they're entering their first year of FBS football.
Let's go, baby.
And I feel like there's no better way for me to honor the Owls of Kennesaw State than to take them to a national championship in EA College Football 25.
They'd be like the Las Vegas Golden Knights of college football. Inaugural season, they come out, win the Natty.
Saying, you never know.
I would get that. I would get that merch.
And I'm pretty sure they still run the triple option, which I just think is fantastic.
The triple owl golden, the triple golden owl option.
Hey, that's what we can call it. But regardless, I'm very excited. I don't know if I'm going to pay $150 for like the Heisman edition of this game. Have you seen that? They have like 3 different editions. One of them is like $150.
Oh, God.
If I'm going to pay that much for a game, I better get my own Heisman trophy along with it.
At least a little figurine or something.
Something like give me a little plaque or something like that. Something I can hang on the wall, because that is and like I get it. The price of everything's going up, but like video games have gotten a little bit on the ridiculous side. I think the base game is just going to be $60 in general, with however many microtransactions you're going to end up having to pay for. But I draw my line at $70.
And if you pay another $25, we'll add this minigame feature you could probably just install in 3 months anyway.
I miss when games just came complete. You went to Walmart or GameStop, you bought the game, and everything was in there. And you know what? You had to like accomplish things in the game to unlock stuff.
Or, like 8 or 10 months down the line, they release the DLC, and then you can go and, scratch off the code for it and, buy option 1 for the standard. Like, then what happens when your friend gets the deluxe version? Then you can't enjoy the fun.
Simpler times that are unfortunately in the past. But again, excited for that to come out here in just a couple of months from now. We'll have to get you in on our little tournament that we're trying to get started here when the game comes out.
Oh, I'll take you up on that.
That'll do it for today's edition of The Extra Point. He is Sam Shapiro. I am Tyler Head. Coming up next, it is the Garden Trust Hour. Myself, Chris Clark, and Grace from the Gamecock Central also going to be joining us as well. It is The Extra Point here on the game. 10 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour here on the Game. Tyler Head and Chris Clark along with you as always. Happy to be joined once again from the Garnet Trust by Grace Ieria. I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, all right. I didn't butcher that. It's not like people at graduation. We got the name right, and congratulations to you, by the way, for graduating this past weekend, correct?
2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it
wow,
was.
it's been a couple weeks. Okay.
Yeah,
See,
officially alumni.
I realize once I've gotten out of school, I have no perception for like school calendars anymore. So it kind of dawns on me in like late May. I'm like, oh yeah, people like graduating now. Like it's not a thing that I think about anymore.
Yeah, it's still going on. It was May 4th, so I was the last graduation for USC, and now I'm officially an alumni, which is weird.
How does that feel?
It's weird. It's weird. Paying my loans now. It's like a full-on adult.
Have they started bothering you for donations yet?
Yep, already. As if I have any money to give.
You'll get that call about once a month.
Yeah.
That probably began while you were in school. The donations.
Yeah.
But you, in your other part of your life, you have been helping solicit donations for Garnet Trust.
Yeah, exactly. So I understand both sides of asking for money and being asked for money. But
now, do you do like cold calls on people?
Not for Garnet Trust, really. We call and thank a lot of people for their donations and everything, but mostly when I'm out and about, just always looking for money.
I can't stand cold calling on anything in general, but I can't imagine doing that. Ask me like, hey, want to donate some money?
Yeah, no, most people will hang up in your face anyway. I feel like it would be a little bit pointless, but maybe one day we'll switch over.
Since we talked to you last, I mean, I know that y'all have been doing a lot of the, like you said, calling and thanking donors. You've been to some of the welcome home tour events and things like that. What have you picked up from the fan base, whether it's just kind of observing and watching, or what they've told you directly over the phone or in person about Garnet Trust, about NIL, about South Carolina?
Well, the first welcome home tour I went to was in Lancaster. I think it was the first one overall.
She got it right. Tyler, okay.
No, wait a minute. Are you a native of the state of South Carolina?
No, but I was told it's not Lancaster. That's why I said Lancaster.
Yeah. Well, Tyler can't.
I can't get it right. I'm not even going to try and say it.
No, come on. Just try it.
Lancaster. See, I can't say it.
It's quick. Lancaster.
Lancaster. Is that right?
Say it again. Do it one more time.
Lancaster.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You drew it out a little bit. Like you got to shorten it, compress it a little bit.
You know what? That's close as I'm going to get.
The first time, Grace, that like we were telling Tyler about the Lancaster Welcome Home Tour because like I was there, we were talking about it, and he tried to say it, and we were like, whoa, we got to stop the show. Like we had a full-on analysis, but you're getting better.
See, because not being from the state of South Carolina,
right.
when I hear that word, I think of like Pennsylvania, where like the Amish live, Lancaster in Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? Like that's the way I've always heard it my entire life. So I'm getting used to it.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Boston, where every town is not said how it's spelled. Like Worcester is Worcester, without the R, as regular Bostonian would say it. But so I understand. Like I don't know. I kind of get it.
But you don't have the like big time.
You don't have a Yuva accent.
I don't have. My parents do, and my friends like would come up and they wouldn't understand like what my parents were saying. But I get called out for saying like house out a little weird. I
was
guess.
Gonna say it probably comes out like
certain words
in certain words.
Or if I'm like up there like around my family talking like that, that's when I
imagine some people around like you ain't from around here, are you?
Yeah.
What about Nicholas Harbor? Does anybody, would your parents say Haba or whatever?
Yeah,
I can't do the Boston.
Yeah, they would.
They would.
Yeah. Like even my younger brother, he was 1 when we moved. So my mom was like, oh, like go get the thing out of the drawer. And he had no idea what she was saying. This was like a few years ago. My mom, she was horrified. She's like, we need to move him back up. Like he doesn't even understand his own mom.
Southern 5.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. But anyway, I interrupted you rudely when you were talking about the Lancaster Welcome Home Tour. But you were saying.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it has to go on with that. Like we were, I had never seen. Again, from Boston, I sit down and I ask for water, and the woman only gave me sweet tea, as if that was water, and I was shocked, culture shocked a little bit, even though I've been in the South for a while. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, people would walk by. A lot of people would still say, "Okay, what is it? What is Garnet Trust? Whatever," and give them the quick spiel, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't get it." It's confusing when, especially, they're all Gamecock club members. You know, they're like, "Well, we're already paying Gamecock Club, like why are we doing both? So I understand the misconception of it all, but you know, there were some people that came through, I'm like, yeah, I'm a member already. Like we love Garnet Trust, we love what they do, everything like that. So it's a mix of both.
And I've lost count at how many welcome home events there's been over the past couple weeks and months. There's been a lot of them. Beamers are doing one seemingly every 2 days.
Yeah.
How important is it? And look, Beamer's very personal. He's always out in the community, always doing a lot of things. How important is it to have a head coach that, for one, understands the importance of what you guys are doing, but as two, is willing to give his time to go literally across the entire state, speak to these people to help them understand the importance of what Garnet Trust is trying to do?
Yeah, because we were, me and Sydney, who was on here before, she's unfortunately back in Charleston this summer, but the only thing we wanted out of the whole welcome home tour was to meet Beamer and have him like know who we were. We thought it was the coolest thing ever, obviously. And he's genuinely like one of the nicest guys. Like Jeremy and Mark will always joke like, oh, like Sydney and Grace have never anything bad to say about him. Like after that, we went to Beamer Ball. He remembered our names. Like, he's like, yeah, Garnet Trust. Like, I remember, like, whatever. And anyone who would ask, like, Beamer's always willing to talk to people about literally anything. And if you ask him about Garnet Trust, about anything that has to do with, you know, what he does and everything, he's great with communicating with the fans, which I think is really important.
So you mentioned earlier how, you know, there was still maybe some confusion in the fan base, right? As to, I feel like, I remember when Garnet Trust started, it was 2021, and there was, I mean, more confusion than anything, right? It's like, what is this? You know, I don't get it, which is understandable because it was brand new. But then, you know, you go in the stadium now or a basketball game or a baseball game and you see the logo and the QR code. Like, there's more education and understanding, but there's still that gap where it's like, what is this? What does it do? Why do I need to participate? The state law has now changed in South Carolina. And because of that and some other changes, it's going to kind of open the doors for some more integration. So what do you feel like that may do from what you've heard, you know, talking with Mark and Jeremy, what you've seen? Will that help more fans get involved?
I think so. You said like all the games have the logo and the QR code everyone can look up and everything. But I think the school will hopefully and probably give a lot more info on it, like just in day-to-day things, like posting wise, like because most people are obviously always looking at, you know, what everyone's posting on the school coming from them. Like it's going to have a lot more like, oh, well, if the school's going to advocate for it, then they're going to listen to them. They already trust them and give money to Gamecock Club. I feel like that'll help like tremendously. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the other part of it is, you know, something we've talked about before is fans who, you know, maybe are in the Gamecock Club or they've been waiting for, man, you know, I would like to participate in NIL, but kind of what am I getting out of it? The opportunity to get, you know, priority points or some other perks or something like that with your Gamecock Club membership. To me, that is something I've heard a lot, and I would think that helps a lot, assuming that they institute that.
Yeah, because I understand like where they're coming from. Like I'm already given to Gamecock Club. I get all my points. I get my season tickets and everything, and that's all well and great. But you know, you're getting the season tickets. Garnet Trust, we're paying, you know, paying these players to come to the school, and then that's the world it is today. People don't like that these athletes get paid, but that's what it is. There's no changing it now. You can't go back. So, you know, that's what's bringing in more players to the school. So you're getting the tickets. You want to watch a good game, then it kind of is the same.
And I understand the concern that people have, and that's what worries a lot of people about the future of the model that we have. Is like eventually people are going to get that fatigue of like, well, doing this every single year, and you know, yes, my team may be better, but I don't feel like I'm seeing as personal of the results that I want to see outside of maybe getting some of those perks and stuff like that. And, you know, we could be here all day talking about the ever-changing landscape of college sports. It seems to be changing every single day. And we specifically have had this, you know, thing going on across the street with the new NIL bill. What are the conversations like within the walls of the Garnet Trust about everything that's changing and how you guys are having to, you know, maybe not adapt on a daily basis, but start thinking ahead of, okay, well, if this happens, here's what we need to do, you know, from our standpoint?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot just because, again, obviously changing every day. We talk a lot like we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, but just little things, you know, working better with the donors, getting them, you know, everything that they can get out of it, like their perks. So having these athletes, you know, send them a personalized video, posting more, you know, having the athletes more out there on social media where everyone, likes to and wants to see them. Having, certain companies coming in, they can have an athlete kind of, shout them out on their Instagram, like just little things like that. We do have 2 more new interns this summer. Megan, she's a soccer player, so we've kind of talked to her a lot about like what we could do better for them on their side of working that, which has really helped a lot because we've never really, we'll hear from the athletes what they want, which isn't always the greatest thing to hear, but she's talked to us on a better standpoint of just more like communication wise, which have been doing a lot of on athlete and donor side.
What has been the the best part from what you've seen of the whole NIL experience? Not really your personal experience, but just like in general, the best part about NIL, and then what are some of the worst parts about it to you?
Well, I think the best part that I've seen, we went to there was a charity golf event, and we had two football players come in and play golf. So that they were obviously excited. It's a great time, but seeing everyone be like, "Oh my gosh, you guys got these players here. This is so cool. We could hang out and talk to them, and they're celebrities pretty much now, especially in the state of South Carolina. But I think that's really cool, and just seeing them actually go out and do the things that they're supposed to do with all those charities. Come on the radio, obviously, things like that. The bad side, I mean, you're 19, 20 years old coming into all this money. You have no idea what to do with it, and sometimes they're not very smart with it. I wouldn't be. I'm still 22 years old. I wouldn't be coming into college as even 17, 18 years old. Like, that's a huge change. So I don't know. I think working better and kind of transitioning them from, not working probably, in high school to now being a athlete and making money.
I think that's a great point because, if you think about, and let's just use a made up round figure. Let's say you're a pretty high level athlete and you get, I don't know, $100,000, right? Mm-hmm. in a year on an NIL deal, or 200, some pretty good number. And then, as we know, most players don't get an opportunity to go pro, or if they do, it lasts a year, 2 years. So then you've got to go out and get a job, and so if you don't plan well, or if you just kind of create a lifestyle that's a $100,000 or $200,000 lifestyle, you're not going to be able to sustain that necessarily unless you get a really good job. So I feel like that's something I've seen a lot too, just kind of covering it from a media perspective. And that's why I think that the educational part of it and the planning is going to, I think it's going to continue to be more important.
Yeah, I think that's, not that I didn't think of that, but a lot of these players, like we're trying to work a lot harder on getting them to actually market themselves and get brand deals, and it's a lot of work. Like we see all the big athletes, like Livy Dunn, like one of the greatest, like NIL makes the most money out of anyone, and she works for it. Like all that posting and stuff, obviously we look at it and it's like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, he posted a TikTok video, but like it works. Like, and it does take a lot of work. That's why not everyone is posting or getting famous off of their posts. So just doing those like media things, like that's gonna, get you the brand deals, and then you're gonna work for Gatorade for the rest of your life. Because, and we have had a few players be like, oh, like after this draft, you'd be like, wait a second, I saw a lot of kids that I know not make it, and I didn't realize, it's kind of a reality check. Like, what will I do if I don't make it to the league? You're stuck, kind of. So with NIL, working and learning how to work, really, because all these athletes have ever done is just, play their sport, and obviously they're good at it. But, after college, you do need to kind of figure out what you're going to do if you can't play your sport anymore. With that, you can, work with ESPN and work with Gatorade, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever these big brands are, to have a job.
It is the Garnet Trust Hour. Tyler Head and Chris Clark hanging out with Grace Area from the Garnet Trust on this Tuesday. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, going to be talking with Aaron Brand, head coach for Irmo High School. Get his thoughts on what's going on with Irmo, as well as talk a little bit about Nikki Minori as well. Again, is the Garnet Trust Hour on your Tuesday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour here on the game. Tyler Head, Chris Clark, hanging out with Grace Ayera from the Garnet Trust here on this Tuesday. It's actually very interesting that you're in here because the last hour we had some very interesting news on the NIL front that popped. Jaden Rashada, remember that name? It was originally the Florida quarterback. No, originally at Miami, flipped to Florida. Florida could not follow through on their NIL deal with him. Goes to Arizona State. Now he's at Georgia in a very full quarterback room. And within the last hour, news has come out. He is suing head coach Billy Napier, as well as a few others, going back to this botched NIL deal from the end of 2022.
This is crazy. I mean, first of all, y'all remember when this happened? This was pretty.
We talked about this
constant.
A lot a year and a half ago when it was going on.
Is that when it was? That long ago?
Yeah.
So the
16 months.
The flip from Miami to Florida was in November of 2022, and it was quite literally Florida saying, "Hey, we've got this NIL deal," which again at that point in time that was not legal. To promise somebody something before they could come to the school. And it was very well publicized. That was what was going on. They promised him essentially a 4-year deal of about $14 million split out over a period of time. Mm-hmm. Then he got to the school, literally was on campus, and they're like, yeah, we don't have your money. So he's like, well, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So you'll be hearing from my lawyers later. And it's later. Now they're hearing from his lawyers.
Well, the crazy thing about this was like about a year into NIL just in general. And, like, these numbers were big because Rashada was a good prospect.
The 4-star.
And still is. Like, he's a 4-star guy.
But it had not even...
Yeah, he hadn't taken a snap.
Set foot on campus yet, and they were promising him these outrageous
Not on campus.
numbers.
That's crazy.
And you remember the deal that Nico from Tennessee got?
Mm-hmm.
It was... Y'all remember the numbers? I mean, it was millions.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was like $8 million over
7, 8,
3 or 4
something
years.
like that.
Something like that. Well, Miami, according to the complaint, I don't know if this number had come out yet. The Florida numbers had come out, but the complaint, which is 37 pages long, by the way, Jaden Rashada had signed an NIL deal with Miami that was $9.5 million. That was a big number even then, right? But the Florida deal was 4 years, $13.85 million. So, like, right there, like, that was your first sign. Because I remember when these numbers came out, you're like, you don't even need a deal that big,
right? Really.
And you're not going to be able to fulfill it. And the thing just ended up being a huge mess.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, I mean, it is what it was. Florida just threw that number out there just to say, like, oh, hey, we can offer you a lot more money, and it was an empty promise. I don't know why they thought that it wouldn't come out that they were, like, lying. I don't know how that came about.
And the details of this, and this collective isn't even around anymore, and no surprise there, but they were competent that they could scrounge up the money, but whatever the payment that was due to Rashada when he got on campus or something along the lines of early spring last year, they didn't have the money. They had about half of the money, I think, that is what it was. And again, I mean, talk about a contract at this point in time that's a breach contract. So he's like, I'm going to go to Arizona State, which from what I recall, I think he got hurt maybe part of the way through this year. He didn't set the world on fire necessarily out at Arizona State. So I don't know if this money was warranted. Now he's at Georgia. So, this makes this all the more interesting. Now he's suing, again, head coach Billy Napier, not the University of Florida itself, but Napier, Marcus Castro-Walker, who is the director of NIL and player engagement down there, as well as a booster in Hugh Hathcock as well, who is also involved in this situation. So a lot going on here.
Sources told On3, and this is according to Portal Pete Nakos, his story. Sources told On3 that Georgia head coach Kirby Smart was aware of the lawsuit being filed and signed off on it.
You think he was going to stop it?
Yeah. He's like, go ahead and do that.
But I think
that's a little spice to it.
I think about this from the perspective of, Billy Napier already has a lot going on. His seat's already feeling hot. He's underperformed his first 2 years. They've got a mammoth of a schedule going on this fall. He's got to figure out some things about who's going to be playing certain spots on his team after a disappointing year and shuffling around in the transfer portal. And now he's got a lawsuit to deal with. Like, my goodness. I mean, Billy Napier just can't win.
Also, all these other players are looking at that being like, oh, you're offering him, $15 million, $14 million. What about us? Like,
well, and that was the thing. And I think this, going back to when all this was going on a year ago, I think this brought a lot of people down to earth a little bit when it came to NIL, because again, this was a kid that had not even set foot on campus or started taking a college snap that was being promised all this money. And I think a lot of people kind of looked at this and like, wait a minute, I think this is a little bit too steep for somebody that we don't know what their full potential is. And again, you still got guys like Nico that have gotten, really high NIL deals and stuff like that. But, you are certainly taking a risk that you don't know is going to pay off if you're going to promise, again, over the course of 4 years, what they were supposedly going to give Jaden Rashada.
Yeah, and then, what, he either gets hurt or even just doesn't show out, like, that's
the thing is, if he comes in and he's not as good as you think he is and he's riding your bench, but you're still promising him all this money over the course of 4 years, you're wasting your money at that point in time.
Yeah, and you see that happen. I can't say they didn't know what they were doing, but you see that happen coming from high school, going to college. It's a different game. Same with going from college to the league. Like, all these players, like, number one, like Bryce Young, like whatever. You're not showing out as much as they thought they were going to. So it's like you can't always be so certain that he is worth $14 million, whether how good he was in high school, how good he was before he even got there to even practice or anything.
Yeah, I think the whole thing was just kind of, I don't know, ill-conceived from the start. Like, it was a bad idea for Florida's collect. They actually had two collectives that were, not really competing, but they were kind of alongside each other. My understanding from talking to some people down there is that caused a lot of problems around this, and the whole thing was just a terrible idea. Like, I think they were trying to make a splash, right? Like, we're going to take Miami's quarterback commitment. We need a big splash for a quarterback. We'll throw out this big number, because then some other kids are going to hear this number, behind the scenes, but then it leaks out, and then you can't fulfill. They obviously, if you go through and read some of the parts of the complaint, like, they didn't have this money. They never had it. They're probably never going to get it, and it just ended up being a disaster. So Jaden Rashada has actually a pretty big name attorney too, Rusty Harden. He was Deshaun Watson's attorney recently. Warren Moon, Roger Clemens, he's worked with. So they've Florida's in some trouble here, I think, on this one.
What is he asking for, money wise?
Does it say?
Does it not?
I don't know if it specifically details what he's asking for money wise with this lawsuit.
$14 million.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a percentage, a percentage of what he was promised or anything like that. Because again, they drew up a contract with the kid, and they did not pay up on their end, so they're going to owe him something. What that is, I don't know.
Lawsuit.
But for again a Florida program that is, dealing with a lot in general already, and certainly not as successful as they were 10, 12 years ago. No. This is just another thing to add on to the laundry list of things they're dealing with.
Oh, makes us look really good, though.
It does. But here's one thing I'm wondering, like, are we going to see more of this if athletes have had problems with collectives? Are we going to see more lawsuits? Because, like, that's typically what happens. Like, somebody takes a step, and then it's kind of a copycat thing. And then the other side of it, this one seems more dangerous to me, but I do wonder, will collectives sometimes start suing athletes, who aren't holding up their end of the bargain?
Yeah, I can see it more coming from athletes suing the collectives.
That will happen.
Absolutely. And it's just going to depend on, because they're going to all look at this and be like, oh, wait, well, who knows? Like, maybe I'm not getting my money, blah, blah, blah. They're just going to, and I feel like most of them will end up being nothing, but it's also, I don't know other players, but it's going to have to be someone else who was offered, that much money. It's not going to be someone suing because, wherever it is, not even saying here, like, oh, you offered me like $100,000 a year, like you're not getting out. Like, I'm sorry, like in the grand scheme, obviously that's a lot of money, but comparatively to 14 million, it's not gonna be that big.
That's right.
We'll talk with head coach Aaron Brand of Irmo High School coming up next. Get his thoughts on what's going on with that program, as well as talk a little bit about Nick Imnawari, his former player as well. That's all coming up. It is the Garnet Trust Hour on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour here on the game. Tyler Head, Chris Clark, Grace Area from the Garnet Trust hanging out with us here on this Tuesday. Time to talk a little bit of football. Joining us now on Love Chevrolet phone lines, Coach Aaron Brand from Irmo High School. Coach, first of all, appreciate your time this morning. You know, we talk about college football being in a little bit of a lull in the month of May. What's it look like on the high school front? What's going on with you guys this time of year?
First of all, good morning to you, Chris, Tyler, and Grace. Football in high school levels it's in full swing right now. So I guess we're the hot thing out right now. We're just trying to get through the spring, healthy, and trying to make sure we can have a little momentum going into the summertime.
Coach Brand, Chris here. Thanks again for joining us. Appreciate your time. I know that the spring evaluation period for college coaches has been keeping you busy, and Irmo's a program that's produced a lot of talent, you know, over the past few years. Nick Eamon-Warry being one. We'll talk about him soon. Your son, AJ, and then Donovan Murph, the receiver from the 2026 class, also is a highly recruited guy with a bunch of offers, among others. Tell us what the traffic's been like there from college coaches at Irmo.
It's been crazy. Chris, I was telling somebody yesterday, I think it was Garrett Riley, obviously. I was telling Garrett Riley yesterday out of Clemson. I know that's not one of the fan favorites around here, but you know, those guys tend to stop in a time or two also. Just that I felt like something was missing. I felt like we were getting a little Hollywood because we were trying to show off too much for the guys that were coming around, and we needed a solid practice yesterday that would kind of bring us back down to earth a little bit. We have been recruited heavily this spring, and obviously last spring, and ever since Nick Eamon-Warry came out of his place, you know, there've been, when it was time, there've been a bunch of colleges around St. Andrews Road, but there was still something missing. And I think we found it yesterday with the intensity of practice and just kind of us getting back to what got us to kind of where we are right now. And we're still not where we want to be, but we're not where we were either. So we're steadily trying to improve every day and trying to get back to the grind of what got us to me being able to be on a radio show like this and promoting Irmo football and talking about the great people that have come out of Irmo football and are still making their way through the program. So it's been a bit of a grind. The traffic's been heavy, but these guys have responded yesterday, and it helped a lot to get our track coach Jack Cameron, who's been with me a long time. He's kind of the when he talks, everybody listens type of guy, and old school fella that just kind of gets everything back in the road for us. So traffic's heavy, but we're still grinding.
You know, that's an interesting point that you bring up there, you know, mentioning that since Nick has come through, there's been a lot of traffic from coaches. And we talk all the time about the importance of these coaches establishing and keeping relationships with, high school and high school coaches. What does that look like from your end on making sure that your program is always relevant and always has those eyes on it to have these coaches come out and evaluate your talent?
I think the people know that we're going to develop some people. We're going to develop some players. We were a little bit unsung at the beginning of our tenure here, but I think people knew my track record from North Carolina and knew that I was a developer of players and I guess what we used to call a whisperer of quarterbacks and just being able to promote our guys and be honest with the college coaches. Not just talk about the highlights of our players, but make sure these guys know the lowlights and the deficiencies and what these guys need to work on also. That doesn't mean that these places still won't take a chance on them, but that's just kind of being upfront with the coaches and letting them know that these guys our guys aren't perfect, but we do have a great start and we do have a little momentum going forward. So when we do come on your campus, we're going to be ready to compete. And it's not going to be a situation where we have to sit around and wait 2 or 3 years. Most of our guys are going to be ready to compete right off the bat.
Well, and that's something that Shane Beamer talks about a lot. Nick Eamon-Warry came out of your program, wasn't even a January enrollee. He enrolled in the summer, and then he and DQ Smith from Spring Valley both ended up, starting as true freshmen in the secondary in the SEC, which is tough to do. But give us your take on, just watching Nick now that he's at South Carolina, just how he's developed, and then maybe what you think the next steps in his development are for this season.
Well, Nick's obviously an Amazon. You know, Nick came by the program the other day, man, and I'm so thankful that, you know, because Nick's kind of quiet, Nick's kind of reserved. I'm so thankful that we still have the great relationship that we had the same day he left our program. Watching him and watching his size and watching Nick perform, I think the sky's still the limit. And I still think his best football is in front of him. He has shown tremendous. He's made tremendous strides at that program, but I still think he's got much more in the tank, and I look forward to him really exploiting some receivers this year and really putting that talent and that more that he has on display. But he's a super kid first and foremost. He is a tremendous football player, and what that group down there wants more from him, and what I think they'll see is more of a leadership type role this year. And him, when Nick is a man of few words, but when he does talk, I think people should listen, and I think people are starting to listen. And like I said, sky's the limit for Nick Ebenwari.
Again, talking to head coach Aaron Brand from Irmo High School. And, Coach, this past year was obviously a special one for you guys. What was the reason that you guys were able to be successful in 2023, and what's the optimism going into 2024 for your team?
Well, I think we were able to stop some people on defense. I think we gave up 5 points a game, and we kicked more. This is a tremendous stat now. We kicked more extra points last year, all right, than points given up on the whole year. So I think defense was the key. I think we had a big old running back, Jaden Allen Hendricks, that just really was a bell cow for us. Donovan Murph had a tremendous year coming out of kind of nowhere. But at the end of the day, we had the most productive player in the state. A.J. Brand was 62 touchdowns and 1 turnover on the year. And I not want to boast or brag about that, but when you have to make a team go 80 yards every time, it's just something to be said about that. We just didn't turn the football over, and to have a quarterback with, like I said, 62, get you in the end zone 62 times, and that's just tremendous. And to have that coming back for the 24th season, we had the most productive player in the state back this year. So does that mean it's going to equate to more wins than last year? I don't know. We're not as good a football team as we were last year right now. And I've been telling people that for a while now. But we have a chance to continue making strides, and if we can, these last couple of days of spring, if we can keep grinding like we did yesterday, then we'll have positive momentum going into the summertime. But we look to be right back where we left off. It's tough without the running back, but to have Murph and AJ back is a blessing for any coach, and we're going to try to take advantage of it.
Well, Coach, we're going to be very excited to track what your team's going to be able to do this fall, and we certainly wish you and your squad the best of luck. Appreciate you joining us this morning.
Well, I still do appreciate you guys.
And that's head coach Aaron Brand from Irmo High School, and looking forward to what that team's going to be able to do. We'll come back and wrap up today's edition of the Garner Trust Hour. Tyler, Chris, and Grace from the Garner Trust, along with you on this Tuesday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour. Satterhead, Chris Clark, Grace area from the Garnet Trust hanging out with us for a couple more minutes. So we are got our eyes on what's going on in Hoover. SEC tournament underway. LSU leading Georgia in game number 1. Carolina will take on Alabama coming up at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Pregame coverage starting right here on the game at 1:15. Grace, we've talked plenty about baseball over these past couple weeks, and unfortunately, things not exactly trending in the right direction, which is a little different than what we were able to enjoy through the spring with basketball doing so well. So, what are your thoughts on what we've seen from baseball this year?
It's obviously, like you said, not very exciting. Nothing fun to watch going on there. Obviously, none of us like losing, especially coming off of that national championship win, men's basketball going to the tournament. Like, that was just so exciting. But I think it makes me more excited for football coming up. I mean, obviously we always are gonna hope we're gonna win, and we always get those random big wins. And with these, Tennessee, Clemson, like 2 years ago, like that was awesome. So
Do you know how many days until kickoff?
No, what is it? Like there was like 15 Mondays or something last Monday.
That's a random.
Yeah.
I didn't think
Or
about
Saturdays.
I didn't think about breaking it down.
Probably said Saturdays.
Why are we doing?
I didn't
Monday?
think about breaking it down that way, but that is correct. 102 days.
Okay,
So almost to the 100-day countdown.
that's exciting.
We'll have a party when we get to 100 days
Yeah, definitely.
in the
So on Thursday.
lobby here.
All right, I'll be here.
We are having I don't know even know if I'm allowed to say this. I'm going to say it though. A week from today, Tyler, we're having brisket day upstairs.
Oh, I did not know this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, actually, you know what? I did get the email about that.
Okay.
But you know what the funny thing is? I'm in here from 9 until 3 every single day. So by the time I get up there, a lot of stuff's usually gone.
We will we'll rearrange things and make sure we get you a plate. But Grace,
appreciate that.
you're welcome. Grace, you're going to Tuscaloosa this year.
Yes,
I hear.
I'm
for the
very
football
excited.
game.
I've never been to Alabama at all. Anywhere.
Never been to Bama.
Nope, never.
Now, does it take a little bit of the enjoyment out knowing that Nick Saban's not going to be coaching on the other sideline?
No, because now I'm hoping, maybe we might have a fighting chance down there in Tuscaloosa. I'm
fair.
excited because I've, being in school, we went to Tennessee. I've been to Knoxville like every time we've played there. I went to UGA last year. I guess those are the only two other schools I've been to, but everyone always wanted to do Vanderbilt, but Nashville, that was kind of a hike for just a weekend, and obviously not a great game either. So I'm excited to go out west. But yeah, I'll only make it to Tuscaloosa. I'm not going farther than that.
My best Vandy story. We have this running joke, Grace, where it's kind of by accident. We always end up piling on Vandy, just kind of.
Great school.
Unfortunately. See, even that's like a backhanded compliment.
I know, it's true.
That is the equivalent when somebody asks you, "Oh, what did you think of my friend?" "Oh, great personality."
Great.
You know what I mean? Like, "Oh,
Yeah.
great academics at Vanderbilt." It's like, yeah, because baseball's good, but most of the other sports not so much.
We went to a game there one year, and we had this big group. So we walked from downtown, and we're like, "Man, we need 16 tickets. Like, this might be tough." And we just asked. One of the people selling tickets, he's like, 16 together, no problem. Like you just 16 tickets right together. And I mean, we had all
your
this
own
space.
section.
We had our own section. Yeah, and it was more Gamecock fans than Vandy. I mean, for sure.
Well, and now that Nashville has become more of a destination city, you usually get more opposing fans there than home fans.
Oh, absolutely.
At what's the name of the place now? It's First Bank Stadium. They changed the name
it's
of it.
a bank. Yeah,
Some kind of bank.
I was there in the spring. We just went on a trip, and the hotel we stayed at was only like a mile from like downtown, so it was perfect. And we didn't even realize it was. Obviously, we got there, and it was right behind the stadium.
Yeah,
Vanderbilt. Stadium.
they're still working on it, right? Still doing construction.
Yeah, a little bit, not much, but.
Yeah, I mean that is a fun trip though. I'm doing Bama and Oklahoma this year, and we had pre-planned that, and then they're like, yeah, those are going to be back to back, so we'll do those. Those will be.
So we won't see a lot of Chris those
2 weeks.
in those 2 weeks.
I'll be here, in the middle parts. I'll be calling in and things like that. But those will be my last SEC stadiums. So it's going to be Alabama was going to be the last SEC stadium, but now Oklahoma and Texas are coming in. So I'll have Oklahoma which I'll check off this season, and then I'll just need to do Texas.
Oh,
that'll
that's
be all the SEC stadiums.
Wow.
But you have to wait until 2026 at least for Texas.
Yep. I've been to Austin, but haven't been to a game at Texas.
Okay.
That's exciting.
That'll be, I feel like a lot of Gamecock fans will go to Austin when that trip comes around, or
Definitely.
they should, because that place is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they scheduled on a better weekend than when Georgia and Texas are playing this year. Same weekend they have the F1 race in Austin. I can only imagine how chaotic that weekend's going to be. Don't think they planned that one too well.
No, they didn't. Well, but to go back to, talking about Nick Saban leaving Alabama, I was just reading something from Andy Staples of On 3, and he was talking about how loaded Alabama is still.
Yeah.
I mean, they still got Jalen Milroe at quarterback. They're still Bama. They still got a bunch of talent. And, I don't know how much y'all, watched the draft this year, the NFL draft, but Washington had tons of players drafted.
I saw that.
And a lot of that was, Kalen DeBoer developing guys. And, there's a reason he's won a whole bunch of games. So, yeah, losing Saban is a huge storyline, but I don't know if they're going to just fall off a cliff.
No, definitely not.
And that's a couple. This schedule, in general, is just crazy. And I went through the other day and tried to rank the games, after spring, and people are like, man, you have you have LSU as a more winnable game than Missouri, which kind of sounds weird, right?
Yeah.
But Missouri's going to be probably one of the best teams in the country this year.
Yeah, it's talking about the schedule change. Obviously, I said these past few years, me and my friends have always traveled to Tennessee, Georgia. It's only a few hours away, and now I'm graduating now, but a lot of people younger than me that are still in school, they're kind of bummed. They're I don't know if we can make it out all the way to Tuscaloosa. Miss 2 days of school to drive down there and drive back on that Sunday, which wouldn't be an easy drive, 7 hours back.
But if you won, it'll be worth it.
Always be worth it. Always be worth it.
You're not going to remember the classes that you missed,
No.
but you will remember being there.
Yeah, no, unless it turns into failing the class. But we'll hope that those
You know
kids
what?
will
You
make
can
it.
always retake the class. You can't go see the game again.
You're right.
All right, Grace, thanks for hanging out with us. That'll do it for today's edition of the Garnet Trust Hour. Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, getting you set for Gamecock baseball taking on Alabama at the SEC tournament here on The Game.
All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media. They've been to my home. They've been to Wes's home. They can come out to your home or business and help take your audiovisual setup to the next level, whether you need something as simple as mounting a TV, if you need a new security and camera system to keep things safe and secure, an entire home theater setup, or a complete smart home system, they can do it for you. Guys at Integrated Media, go check out their services at integratedmediainc.com or give Michael and Nathan and their team a call, 803-948-8327. If you're looking for some examples of their past work, if you need a little bit of inspiration to take your home to the next level, to make it smarter, to help it work better for you and make your life better and easier, Integrated Media Columbia on Instagram or Facebook. Again, that's Michael and Nathan, our friends at Integrated Media, for any audiovisual solutions, integratedmediainc.com.